The Electoral Commission is looking into these allegations. They are quite serious, but what can be done? Finally, what can be done? If it is found that this 625,000 was given above and beyond the spending limits to this surrogate group known as Believe, as it's being alleged by Shamir Sani, if it is found that that's the case, I'm not sure the Electoral Commission can do much. Because the votes happened, and rarely in cases like this, if ever, does the Electoral Commission turn around and strike the vote off and say it just doesn't count. You know, imagine that. That's just not going to happen. So what other options do they have left? Well, they can fine the Vote Leave people that have been accused here if they're found guilty. They can fine Vote Leave, but what's the point of that? Vote Leave was an organisation set up for one purpose alone, and that was to achieve a Brexit vote. It achieved the Brexit vote. I'm sure they'd be more than happy to pay whatever fine they're given now. They're never going to be used again. The referendum's happened. And the other thing they can do, as they did with the general election, is recommend that the CPS investigate to see if any criminal laws have been violated. But again, that doesn't affect the result or the vote. What it means is simply that those individuals who have been embroiled in these allegations, whether it's Vote Leave chief Dominic Cummings, who's published a lengthy defence of himself, or indeed the manager of Vote Leave, Stephen Parkinson, who was the guy that Shamir Sani directly made allegations about, who then defended himself by outing Shamir Sani as a former boyfriend and implying, therefore, that it was through that relationship that some of this information was shared, and in no other capacity whatsoever. But either of these two individuals, if they are investigated, even if they are prosecuted, it wouldn't make a difference. The votes happened, and the Electoral Commission is unlikely to cancel that vote. The only thing productive that can come out of this unfortunate situation is if the electoral law is reformed. Because currently, you can target adverts online without anybody knowing about it, because, of course, they're highly targeted to a point where I wouldn't even see what adverts you're receiving on your social media page, because my interests and my data are different to your interests and your data. And the only way that will be revealed is currently if the campaigners admit to it and say, we've spent this much on this much targeted advertising. Because the Electoral Commission and those responsible for making sure everybody's complying, they're not seeing all those targeted adverts, because that's the definition of targeted advertising. What comes to me is very different to what goes to you. And so not everyone sees all of the adverts. They are, therefore, for all thoughts and purposes from a third-party perspective, invisible. So how on earth do you regulate that? Well, that's why the law needs to change. Because keep in mind one last thing. Online advertising, as we learnt through the Vote Leave campaign and indeed the Trump campaign, online advertising, and generally, as we see, because we live it every day in our lives, online messaging favours the divisive. It favours the sensationalist. It favours the clickbaity. It favours division over unity, and it favours extreme over moderation. That's the nature of how our online world is atomising us and dividing us. We all know that. We live it. We feel it every day. And it's no different in elections. So as a result, unless the electoral law is reformed, unfortunately, populism has an advantage with targeted online advertising that moderation simply doesn't have. And that's why reform, I think, is key.